Okay, good evening to you all, and welcome to the April 2024 edition of our Better Business, Better Society seminar series. It's actually been a little while, pardon me. Spring has gone fast, but we're very happy to have this evening's seminar where we're going to be talking about very interesting topics of sustainable business models. As usual, I'll give you very brief greetings from the School of Business to let you just briefly know what is going on. Looks like I have a hard time shifting these slides now. Just a second. They're shifting on that computer, but not. Hold on just a second. This is working now too. There we go. Yes. Thank you. All right. We are a technology university, so we can solve this kind of issues, right? So here's the latest of from School of Business. I thought I would just lift up the issue that I like to lift up this time of the year usually. This time, again, we have the applicant numbers from the in Finnish yhteishaku, kevään yhteishaku, and in this joint applications round in Finland, as you may recall, we are the #1 target across all universities, all programs in Finland by a pretty good margin. And compared to last year, our numbers have gone up about 10%. So indeed, we do manage to be a very, very attractive study place within Finland. You may also recall, if you have been with us in previous seminars, we do have one issue with our bachelor intake, and that is gender balance. Last summer, our gender balance was perhaps the worst ever, about 28% female amongst those who actually accepted their study places. These are nervous times because we are at about the same numbers at last year's, and this is not atypical. We are usually about 38% female at this point, but what happened last year was from here to the group that actually accepted their study places, the numbers fell. We cannot tell yet what the quality of those 3,544 applicants are, but we do have our wish that we have attracted very talented and diverse set of applicants this year. Time will tell, and we're doing a lot of work to improve our diversity. I thought I would also lift up our recruitment efforts. Our student numbers have grown quite significantly in the last 4 or 5 years, and luckily so have also our faculty numbers, and we are pretty much constantly recruiting, and these are some of the faculty members who are just starting now. Actually, if you look at the names there, Sarjana Lundan actually started this at the beginning of this month. She's coming from University of Bremen, and she's one of the top scholars in the world in international business, so we're very proud and happy to have her on board. The other names there, they will be starting this fall, and we are recruiting at the level where we can just be very impressed about our attractiveness on a global job market. There are few people who are coming, but I cannot tell the names yet. There are a few processes, about 3-4 processes actually ongoing, and I can just tell that the number of applicants and the quality of applicants for faculty positions just keeps going up. So indeed, very impressive. But I'll let the stars of the evening take over, and I think I'm going to bring Samuli here. Samuli Patala is one of our assistant professors, and he's going to be leading the discussion this evening. So Samuli, please take over.
Thank you, Timo, for the wonderful introductions and opening of the seminar. And let me start off by thanking all of you for being here today, both those of you who are here face-to-face as well as those who are here participating from online. Big warm welcome to all of you. And so my name is Samuli Patala, and I will start off with kind of an introduction into today's session. Let me start off by kind of outlining the structure of what we'll be discussing today. So Bianca and I will start off with giving brief introductions into the topic, today's topic, which is sustainability in consumer-oriented industries. Then we have a very interesting set of panelists here today, and each of them will give a short introduction also from their organization and their perspectives into this topic. Then we will have a panel discussion for about 30 to 40 minutes in total. That includes some questions that we have prepared beforehand, as well as some questions from you, from the audience. So please feel free to send any questions that you have for the panelists. All right. So So yes, I work as an assistant professor in the Department of Management Studies here. My research interests are all focused around the topic of sustainable business, and I've looked at broad topics such as sustainable business models, circular economy, collaboration for sustainability, especially between businesses and the public sector, as well as energy transitions. And in the recent years, I've been involved in an Academy of Finland funded project focusing on the textiles and clothing industry and circularity and sustainability issues in that industry. So I will be sharing some insights from that particular industry in this opening. Now, let's start off by looking at the sustainability challenges that we are facing today. So in the recent years, we've seen unprecedented impacts of climate change, which include, for example, heat waves, droughts, flooding in many regions across the world. In addition, we've also seen drastic challenges regarding biodiversity. The Living Planet Index assesses that about 69% of mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians across the globe and their populations have declined since the 1970s. Now, when it comes to social sustainability, we've of course seen a lot of progress in some areas, including, for example, poverty alleviation, quality education. Yet, a lot of issues remain regarding, for example, different types of modern slavery, like forced or unpaid labor. And at the same time, we've also seen new sustainability challenges rising, increasing over the years, which include, for example, mental health issues, especially here in the Western countries. Now, let's consider how our lifestyles and consumption habits are shaping these sustainability challenges. So to use the example of textiles and clothing, which is something that we all need, it's responsible for about 10% of global CO2 emissions. It's generating about 35% of the microplastics, which affect, for example, wildlife in oceans. There's also issues related to water consumption as well as wastewater generation. And in addition, cotton cultivation uses about 16% of pesticides globally, which contributes to issues such as biodiversity loss. When it comes to social sustainability, many of these issues which we discussed earlier are also very prevalent in the industry, including, for example, poor working conditions and even which have even led to disasters such as the Rana Plaza disaster in 2011. Now let's look at how the dynamics of the industry and the business models are leading to these challenges. So in the textiles industry in particular, we know that one of the big issues is the prevalence of these fast fashion business models, which are leading to ever cheaper clothing, and decreasing prices. And there's also unprecedented change of or speed in the industry. So for example, some companies have now even up to more than 50 collections per year. So on average, one collection per week. And these issues are causing consumers to buy cheaper clothing, which is discarded after a relatively short amount of time, and leading also to a usage of lower quality materials, which then leads to increased waste and resource inefficiencies. And also the need to produce cheaper is driving a lot of these social sustainability challenges, like unsafe working conditions, for instance. Now, at the same time, we've also seen many emerging business models which are addressing these issues. So those that are focusing on improving circular resource use or sustainability in the sector. So in Finland, we have, for example, companies like Pure Waste and Finlayson, which have produced clothing using recycled materials. Others, like Lindström, for instance, are selling clothing as a service, which allows them to optimize the resource use and the lifespans of the products. And yet others, like Ivalo, the online clothing marketplace, are focusing on slow fashion, so clothing that is durable, long-lasting, and timeless. And having this kind of products also allows other companies to focus on second-hand business models, for example, Relove or Emmi. I think it's wonderful that we have, for example, a Relove second-hand store even in the Helsinki airport nowadays. And finally, we also have many companies that are focused on producing new types of fibers using recycled materials like textile waste or new renewable-based materials. These include well-known startups like the Infinited Fiber Company and Spinnova, as well as well-known large companies in the forest industry, for example, like Stora Enso and Metsäspring. Nonetheless, just this year, we've seen some troubling news regarding these many of these new business models. So looking at the textiles and clothing sector, and sorry, these headlines are Finnish, but they're focused on particular Finnish companies and from the local newspapers. But just to briefly summarize, for example, the clothing rental company Vaatelainamo announced that they're closing down. Spinnova, which I mentioned earlier, announced that they have considerable layoffs. And at the same time, we've heard that these unsustainable ultra-fast fashion business models coming from, for example, the Chinese online marketplaces have been becoming more popular. And this is not only related to textiles and clothing, but in other sectors like food, which Bianca will talk about next. We've seen headlines saying that the growth of vegan-based alternatives to meat products, which have been seen considerable increase in the recent years, have been declining this year. And in the mobility sector, we've heard that one of the most well-known mobility as a service companies, WIM, announced that they're, or Mass Global, which is producing the WIM app, announced that they're also closing down. So to summarize my opening here, so we have this great imperative to consume more sustainably, focus more on more sustainable products and services. And we have also many solutions for how we can do that. But in the light of these market challenges, we would like to have a discussion on how to improve the market acceptance and viability of these sustainable business models. And with that, I will give the floor to Bianca.
Thank you, Samuli. Thanks. Yes, good evening also from my side, your other host tonight. So thanks for the cue. Exactly, what can be done to improve the market acceptance of sustainable products? I'm going to dive a little bit deeper now in one particular topic concerning the consumption of food. So my presentation will be about sustainable consumption choices in the food sector, and particularly I'm going to tell you a little bit about an experiment that we did where we gave consumers the information about the sustainability of the products that they could choose and then observed what they were doing with this information and how they changed or altered their consumption choices. A little bit about me. So I'm an assistant professor here at the accounting department since about 2 years. And my research interests are rather broad, but part of it is related to disclosure real effects. So companies' disclosures and how different stakeholders react to these. So in this particular experiment that I'm going to tell you about, we were looking at consumers. So this fits very nicely in the topic tonight. And if you think about the carbon emissions that are generated globally, then more than 72% come from households. So it's individuals like you, like us, that are responsible for the GHG emissions to an extent of 72%. So this is our personal carbon footprint, right? And then if you see, if we look at this graph here, we can see that it's even categorized a little bit more in different classes. So of course we know that mobility is an issue, and about half of this portion that is assigned to mobility comes from combustion engine vehicles. But also what is actually something that maybe not all people are aware of is that food is a big factor in this as well, right? So actually food has the largest contribution here to our personal carbon footprint. And now if we take it a little bit further and think about how can we reduce our personal carbon footprint, then of course in mobility this seems rather easy or straightforward. We can take the bike instead of the car, right? We can take a bus instead of our own car, maybe avoid flights. But what about food? We can reduce our carbon emissions related to food, but for that we need to know how much does the food emit? How much do different food products emit? And here is the problem, because most of us underestimate this greatly. So here we can see they also asked, in this study, they also asked people about different appliances. That's the blue dots, but I want you to focus on the red dots now. This is all food products. And you can see that, well, also for the blue dots, people that were asked greatly underestimate how much the stuff that they consume daily is actually emitting, right? If it was correct, if they were estimating it correct, it would be on this gray diagonal line that you see there, but everything is below with a very few exceptions. And we can see that for food, it's even, more below the line than for household appliances. And also it varies greatly, right? So people underestimate the amount of GHG emissions that an orange emits, but they underestimate it even more for beef. And I think cheese is maybe one example that surprised me personally the most, how much GHG emissions actually comes from cheese. So in this experiment that we conducted, we were thinking maybe people want to reduce their carbon footprint, but they just don't know how. Maybe we give them information and see what they do. So we went to the field. We conducted a field experiment. We went into a university canteen for the course of 2 weeks and gave the canteen visitors, which was mainly students because it was a university canteen in Germany, we gave them information about the food that they can choose from. So it was buffet-like food. They could choose the different dishes, and we just provided them with information additionally to the information they already get, like about allergies and ingredients. And if you think about the different channels on the right-hand side, I have put here 3 different channels which this could be attributed to. So how can we make consumers reduce their carbon footprint? There are 3 different channels how to do that. For example, we could prohibit those products that have high emissions, right? That would be the first channel. We just ban them. We could also raise the prices. So we could say, okay, the consumers can decide themselves, but they would need to pay the right price for it. But here, this third channel, we actually chose to address in our experiment. That would just be attributed to targeted transparency. So something like an informational governance. So we give them the choice to decide based on better information. And in our field experiment, we actually also were interested in not only how do they react to information given, but also which format should the information be in that they can react better. Because, of course, you can't give a person that stands in front of a buffet a leaflet of this length and they read it through and then they decide on the food. So it needs to be ad hoc, it needs to be quick, and we wanted to test what would be the best way. So to give you an example, these are 2 dishes that were actually offered in the university canteen in this experimental period. So it was Bavaria in Germany, close to Christmas. Therefore, we had this beef roulade, a lot of meat, 2 animals actually involved at least. And on the other side, we have the pasta that is vegan, if the cheese on top is also vegan. So if I now were to ask you which of these 2 dishes emits more GHG, then probably you would all say the beef roulade, rightly so. But then if I ask you the next thing, by how much more do you think it emits more GHG emission than the pasta, then it becomes more tricky, right? So some people might say 5 times more, 10 times more. It's actually more than 22 times more. And that's the information that we were giving these consumers. But then also we were interested in how to give this to them, right? So here is one example. We just give you the raw numeric values. We just tell you, okay, the pasta has 0.3 kilograms of CO2. Do you do something with that? Will that influence your decision making? Or would it actually be better if I told you, well, this pasta costs 6 cents in environmental costs that are caused by producing and preparing this pasta, whereas the beef roulade is more than €1, right? Almost 1.5. Or would you be more inclined to react to this information if I told you, hey, you have a food budget per day? We all do if we want to stick to the 1.5 degrees climate goal. Then a person has a budget per day that they can generate CO2 emissions in, right? And about 20% of that budget is allocated to food. So if you eat this pasta, you only consume 12% of your daily budget. But if you eat this beef roulade, you already consume 264% of your daily budget. So it's better if you don't eat anything else anymore that day and maybe also the next 2 days. So we were thinking that this budget gives the best information, like it makes it most easiest to digest. Maybe because we come from an accounting background, but actually that was not the case. But this is how we produced these labels. So we tested these different information formats against each other. We gave sometimes the information just as the grams in CO2 without any colors. And then we wanted to also check maybe it helps people to digest this information if we use color codes. So we used the traffic light scheme here in green, yellow, and red. And then we had the same one, the same grams, but in color codes, and also 2 contextualization. So the budget that I just showed you and the money or monetary contextualization that I just showed you. This is how it looked in practice. So people could see this also next to each other by the stairs at the dispensers there in the canteen. They could see and compare which food to choose from. I skipped that in the interest of time and show you the results. And what we found is actually that, well, they do care. They did reduce their CO2 emissions related to their food whenever we gave them information, right? So you can see all of these are having some negative effect. So that means that the GHG emissions were reduced. But the biggest effect we have when we tell them how much money their food is actually causing the environment. So now we don't know what's the actual mechanism behind this, of course. We cannot see that in the study that we did. It might be that they thought they have to actually pay that when they go to the cashier, but then we could say, well, these repeated customers would learn that it's not the case. But anyways, this is what we found. And this is particularly interesting because we did a survey where we also asked them to rank how important the ecological footprint is in their decision to purchase a certain dish. And most of them didn't find that very important. It was only 10% that even said that they think about this when they make this decision. So it was maybe more of a subconscious decision here. And we actually thought that we are doing a good job here. We're not forcing anyone to pay a higher price for higher emissions food or banning anything. We're just simply informing them and then they can take their own decision still, right? But then, of course, you can always find something negative, and this is some media echo that we got from a blog in Austria. That's why it's in German, but I translated it here, and it says something like, for the upcoming CO2 dictatorship, this is how the elite, so us, manipulates our food consumption habits. So, in a way, this could be discussed, right? We did use our discretion to draw the threshold for the green dish, for the red dish. We had to decide what to label good and bad. So maybe we did manipulate the people, but in the end, they still had the free choice, right? So that was basically our idea behind this. But I think this is also something we can discuss maybe a little bit longer and in more depth in our panel discussion. And that was it from my short introduction. And now we would like to invite one by one our 4 great panelists to us on stage. And we start with Mira Peranda from Sodexo, who is also doing the food here in Aalto.
Yes, thank you for the very good introduction, and also thank you for the invitation to be one of the panelists this afternoon, and hello to everybody here from my side as well. As said, my name is Mira Perander, and I work as Director of Communications and Corporate Responsibility at Sodexo. And I thought that I'd say a few words of Sodexo here to start with. Maybe all of you are not familiar with us. So I don't know where to watch. So Sodexo was founded in 1966 in France by Bellon, and he already at that time he thought that or he wanted to create better every day for everybody, and he started his business by serving baguettes from the back of his bike to the boats on Seine River, and from that his business grew. And today we are one of the world's largest employers. We have 430,000 employees all around the world, and we operate in 45 countries. In Finland, we are 1,400 approximately, and we run 200 restaurants. And interesting about those labelings, because we also introduced our own label, where we mark the most environmental friendly option on the menu of the day in our restaurants, or at least in many of them. Yes, and maybe just to mention that our main business is food. It's approximately 65% of our revenues comes from food services, but we also do facility management, like for example cleaning and other kind of technical services. So 35% of our revenues comes from that. And that is maybe something that people don't, at least here in Finland, they are not so well aware of. We want to be the leader in sustainable food and valued experiences. And how we do it by utilizing tech and data, commercial excellence, and then supply chain power. Choosing responsible growth means continuing to act daily to serve clients and consumers in a way that is safer, healthier, and more respectful of people and the environment. And we have set ourselves ambitious objectives that are deployed globally. So not only in one country, but globally. And they are also measured, of course, by country, but globally. And what it means then, when it comes to people, we have various and lots of different kinds of programs where we aim to improve the quality of life of the people, of our employees, but also those communities where we operate. And for example, we have one joint effort together with the World Food Programme, United Nations World Food Programme. We have a joint effort called Stop Hunger that aims to remove the hunger from the world. So quite like high ambitious targets and objectives, but we do work daily in order to achieve that target, also here in Finland. We have also committed to reaching net zero by 2040 globally, which means that we need to transform not only our own operations, but also the entire ecosystem. And there we have identified 4 levers, how we can do that. And we have said that it's like products, cooking, energy, and waste. So we see that these are the things where we can have most of the effects, and that is how we can make the change. This is our roadmap when it comes to net zero. So here you can see more precisely our objectives and targets when it comes to, for example, cooking, 35% plant-based main dishes, dish recipes in our menus by 25, which is really around the corner already. 100% renewable electricity in our direct operations. In Finland, we are already there. Unfortunately, not all over the world yet, but they are working on it. And also we want to reduce waste. 85% of food sites, they follow Waste Watch program, and they report both the waste that is coming from the food preparations, but also plate waste and serving waste. And our ambition is to reduce it by 50% compared to 2017 baseline. Also, we have upcoming objectives there for coming years that are necessary that we can reach the net zero 2040 target, but it's not like so that we can do it alone, but instead we need all the value chain and everybody to join us in this journey. It's not done by one stakeholder or one party alone at all. And this is my last slide, just to show you our responsibility roadmap and commitments and objectives for like by next year. So we are already almost there, and these are 9 commitments that we have. They are all based on the 17 UN sustainable what are they called? SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, yes. So there are like more than 200 activities that we do daily in order to be able to reach these objectives that we have on this roadmap. And I'm happy to say that 25, it's almost there, but we are also almost there. And I'm really confident that we will make it. So that was all for me, an introduction to Sodexo. So who was next?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mira.
Riikka.
And next, I have the pleasure to present Riikka Joukio, our next panelist, who is the Executive Vice President for Responsibility and Sustainability at Kesko. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. And very good evening to everybody also on my behalf. Just wanted to introduce myself first, but actually Samuli did that already. So working at Kesko for the past 3 years, but before that I was about 30 years in the global forest and packaging industry. And also been working in many federations and board of directors. But about Kesko and K Group. So what is K Group and Kesko? K Group means Kesko plus the K stores. So as you know, the retailers in our case, they are independent entrepreneurs. So this is the difference. But altogether, we are the biggest trade sector company in Finland and also one of the biggest in Northern Europe. So retail sales value, 16 billion euros. We have 45,000 employees, nothing compared to Sodexo, or let's say 10%. And we have 1,800 stores and also 1,100 retailers. And these retailers are only in Finland. Otherwise, we're working in 8 countries. And every day we meet our customer 2 million times, either in the store or online. And as the Finns, they do know Kesko very well from the grocery trade. And that is the biggest business in our case. And by the way, we also have Kespro, which is part of the grocery trade business area. And Kespro is a food service wholesale, so serving companies like Sodexo. But just wanted to remind you that we also have two other businesses, which are building and technical trade and then car trade. And building and technical trade is the international part of the business, so you see the countries where we are. And the latest investment was a company called Davidsen, which is located in Denmark. And that was the first footing on Danish ground happening earlier this year. So 3 businesses. Now then towards the topic, sustainability. This is a picture which is showing how we see our role and what is our vision in sustainability. And this is an example of climate emissions. And the emissions that are coming from our own operations, basically from heating our premises. So we have 4 million square meters of premises. And then also logistics, because we're driving a lot of trucks, particularly in Finland. So these emissions are the little bubble in the middle. As we are a trade sector company, so we don't produce almost anything ourselves. So the big part of the emissions are coming from the production of the products. So from the left-hand side. And those emissions, I mean, our own emissions are less than 1% of the whole value chain. And also a bigger bubble is the emission from the use and end of life of the products that we're selling. So which means that, of course, this little bubble needs to go to zero, definitely. And we also have committed to net zero. But if we really want to have some significance in the work that we're doing, so we need to have an impact on the whole value chain. So we need to challenge our suppliers and also then help our customers to make sustainable choices. And the vision is here that we enable sustainable choices for our customers and drive change throughout the value chain. And the same picture actually also can be applied for things like biodiversity or whatever, actually. Now, how is this then done in practice? So this is the, let's say, kind of a overall picture of our sustainability agenda or strategy. So we have 4 focus areas, and the first is minimizing impact on climate and nature. So things linked to climate, biodiversity, and circular economy are under that. Secondly, we really want to emphasize also this value chain, so challenging suppliers to improve their own operations, and then also encouraging our customers and help them to make right choices. And then number 3 is about the well-being and success of our people, and the newest part of belonging under this title is this diversity, equity, and inclusion. So how diverse is the employee base at K Group? And then last but really not least, ensuring good and transparent governance. And there are in practice things like how we reward people based on sustainability results. So they are included here as an example. And under all these topics, there are several subtopics and also targets and things, but I don't have time to show them here, so maybe in the panel a bit more. But just want to give a little glimpse at how we see what the sustainable solutions that we're selling can be. So based on every of our divisions, so grocery trade, of course, offers a lot of plant-based products, for example, you see in the picture. And then building and technical trade is really seeing how important the green transition is at the moment. So we are selling solar panels, heat pumps, a lot of things that are saving energy and water. And then car trade, very strongly building this EV car charging network in Finland. And then in the end, a couple of words about the consumers. So we do regularly a study called K Barometer, And this is a very new one that was done in March this year. So we asked a little bit over 700 people about their sustainable choices. And in the beginning, I can say that at the moment, what is really important for people is price. When they're doing their groceries, so price is a leading thing. But on the other hand, we see that it's a little bit polarized also. So it's price driven, but then also the quality and easiness of buying is also important. But then if we dig into sustainability a bit more, so you see very clearly, and this has been ever since the war started in the Russian attack in Ukraine, so that the importance of buying Finnish products to support Finnish production and also Finnish labor. So this has been on number one seat. And so it is also currently. And if you have a look at a couple of other bars here, so I often have to compromise on product sustainability due to price. It's also fairly high. And the last bars that I'm prepared to pay extra is fairly low. So this really shows the situation in the society at the moment. So sustainability is there, but the local production seems to be the most important factor at the moment. So this is the end of the brief introduction. So we are already on a, let's say, well on the sustainability path. Of course, it has started already in the 80s, a long time ago, but there's always new things to do. So always things that have not been done, even though some others may be in the target level already. And we really welcome everyone to join us on this journey, because I hope all of you also are our customers. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Riika. So next up we have Maija-Liisa Erkola, who is a professor at the University of Helsinki, but also a member of the National Nutrition Council. So welcome.
Thank you for a nice introduction and good evening to all. I will skip the first slide since I was already introduced quite nicely. So about 5 years ago, Nordic Council of Ministers gave a very strong mandate that in the new update of Nordic nutrition recommendation, environmental aspects have to be embedded very strongly. I very much always, when we talk about nutrition and sustainable nutrition, I would like to show this pie, which I have included nutritional sustainability as one sector in a pie. And this is also to remind you that when we talk about sustainability, we very often talk only about the ecological sustainability and kind of forget those 3 other factors. And we must understand, and I know you all understand, that none of those factors fulfill our aims alone. So we always have to think them all. But when we started to update the Nordic nutrition recommendations, we knew that we had resources only to combine nutritional sustainability and ecological sustainability on Nordic level. That meant that we went through all the literature that has appeared after the latest version that was from 2012, and we went through the literature on the nutrient intake, food intake in relation to different health outcomes, plus the ecological sustainability issues of food consumption. And then we came up with the new recommendations, which were launched last year in June. I don't know if you noticed anything in Finnish newspapers. There were new update in which we had new dietary reference values for 34 nutrients and very wide selection of food groups, wider than never before, for 17 food groups. And especially in those food groups, we have embedded guidance how to select food so that you fulfill both the aim of healthiness and the aim of ecological sustainability. So that happened on Nordic level, and also first time Baltic countries aim to use this evidence base for their national recommendations. After that, in Finland, we named an expert group that started to update the Finnish nutrition recommendations. And now we aim that in November this year we can publish the national recommendations, in which we aim to take into account those other aspects of sustainability for a certain point. But I have to admit that there are no as good, as well developed or validated indicators for social sustainability or for economic sustainability. So we should really work harder to improve those aspects or domains of sustainability as well. But we adjust those Nordic recommendations on the Finnish food environment. So we take into account the local production, the local food culture of people. And by economic sustainability, we mean that the diet should be, or the recommended diet, it should be affordable, it should be accessible for all population groups. And this is one of my main points today, that in Finland we have a huge difference between different socio-demographic groups in consumption. I know most about the consumption of food, but maybe in many other aspects as well. And that is a great challenge also when we develop any recommendations, that where our target group is not only one average adult, it's a huge mix of all kind of people with different needs. So we aim to end up on your right-hand corner, you will see the current national recommendations. We aim to end up with the new, fresh version of those later this year. So who is interested in this? Who would use this? First of all, we aim to serve the food sector actors that can directly apply those recommendations in practice in their work. And if the world would be ideal, like we hope, actually the customer shouldn't be too worried at all, because those actors, those experts, they will develop such food environment, both social and physical, that it supports health promoting selections of food. But it doesn't happen so. So after we have published our Finnish recommendation, we really need to establish a very nice and hopefully effective, and hopefully with a big budget, an implementation project in when we take those recommendations to the customer level. So now for the experts, that's the first level, we use heavily all the science-based information, and then we may need to word some things a bit differently for the great public. But our main aims is to increase the proportion of plant-based foods in our diet and decrease the proportion of animal-based foods. And one great challenge in all Western countries is that we should try to achieve energy balance, because greatest challenges among some others are overweight and obesity. So, are the people interested? This is one example of the research what we do at the University of Helsinki. This is based on the actually purchase data from one of the biggest retailers in Finland. We collected the purchase data over almost 3 years, and we looked at the purchases, but we also had many additional questions related to the food behavior. And here we asked, what are their strongest motives when they select food? And as you know, health and environmental sustainability are not among the top motives. And this was really interesting to see that good value for the price was important throughout all socio-demographic groups. But then there started to be differences. For example, for men and for people with lower income, taste was very important, and also the fact that the food needed to be familiar for them. So there are very different motives. They differ between different socio-demographic groups, but there are some things that are important for all. But we will come back to this. So these were just examples that in my field are now in the kind of key factors we are focusing, both in the University of Helsinki, where I work, and in our research and teaching, but also in the National Nutrition Council, where I lead the update of the current national recommendations. But we will come back to these issues later.
Okay, thank you very much, Elisa. Then I have the pleasure to present our final presenter and panelist, Emilia Jedda, who is the Chief Advisor for Circularity and Sustainability in the Finnish Textiles and Fashion Association. Oh. Okay. You can use that one.
Can you hear me? Yes. So, good evening all, and thank you for the kind invitation to this panel discussion. So my name is Emilia Jedda, as you heard, and I represent the Finnish Textile and Fashion Association. We are the central organization for the clothing, textile, and companies in Finland. Unfortunately, I don't have any slides, but let's try to walk through this, even though. Yes. So the Finnish Textile and Fashion Association has been here for approximately 120 years, always supporting our member companies, the textile companies in Finland, trying to provide them support and new kind of initiatives, what have been topical in current dates, and that is something that we still work really passionate with. We have approximately 250 member companies, all active in the textile value chain in Finland. We have raw material providers, we have sewing providers, we have brands, and we also have companies that are active in the end of life stage of the textile value chain. So a really broad ecosystem that we have in place here in Finland. The majority of the companies are small and medium-sized companies. They employ together approximately 5,500 people. Yes, so just want to mention also that 60% of our member companies are active in the consumer section, so they are brands. Our role, or actually the sustainability and circular department's role in our association, is to provide our member companies with support in their sustainability and circular work, foster a network, and also promote collaboration between different parts of the value chain here in Finland, as well as also internationally. We provide them like concrete support in sustainability issues like reporting, communication, CO2 calculation, and so forth. And another part of our services that we provide our companies is advocacy. So we act as an industry influencer, and we have these advocacy groups that our member companies are part of, and there we discuss all the legislative proposals, for example, that we have or the industry is facing, and based on the discussions we do the advocacy, both here in Finland on political level as well in the European Union. Yes, and then the backbone of our organization is that we negotiate the collective agreements in the industry and do have a really good collaboration with our negotiation partners, and we are the employer representatives. But yes, maybe this was just a brief introduction of the Finnish Textile and Fashion Association, and I'm happy to contribute in the panel discussion and discuss about sustainability and circular economy in the textile industry. A lot is going on in the industry, and as well as market-driven, as well as on the legislative side. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Emilia.
thank you very much. Maybe we invite you to stage also, and we can skip one slide ahead. I think we have some nice background here. Yes, so that you don't forget who's with us here tonight. So let's dive a little bit deeper into how each of your organization handles the sustainability trends. So you all already touched on this, and maybe we could start with you, Maja-Liisa, and the National Nutrition Council. So you mentioned that the Nordic recommendations came out last year, right? And then this year Finland is up. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this. You also mentioned that you are planning this big implementation project. So how will this be enforced, and what exactly is planned to enforce this?
You all know that the time is hard, so I can't say anything about the budget-wise about the implementation yet. But let's start about my background institution, University of Helsinki, Department of Food and Nutrition. I would like to start from that because I would like to raise up the issue that the sustainability challenge, it has really forced interdisciplinary studies in our university, and I have seen it as a very good thing because we all know that no discipline alone can solve these wicked problems, and we noticed that also when preparing the national nutrition recommendations. We cannot prepare them anymore only among nutritionists. We need knowledge from other areas, and if wider our aspect towards sustainability is more disciplines we need to work together. And I think if we need to find something good in this sustainability issue, I think it forces us to collaborate better together. And this has happened already in our department and within the University of Helsinki and between all research institutes. And this we noticed also when preparing the most likely if the government is nice for us, because the money in the end comes from that level. We hope that we will get a nice funding that we could really implement the recommendations so that all the population groups, and especially the ones who are in the greatest need of this knowledge, they will be reached the way that really motivates them, because we all know that only education doesn't change our habits, but we need to find more innovative methods to reach, for example, men. Men start far behind the sustainability jump and healthy jump, so we should save men, for example, in our implementation.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was also thinking when you showed the results of the survey that also were very much in line with what we found in our very much smaller survey. Maybe the price will be ultimately the way to go, right?
Yeah, that attracts some, but
Yeah.
I really would hope that sustainability will have such value itself that it would add to the total value of any product, so that we don't need to worry that much about the price. But we all have different resources, of course, and we know that we have even getting bigger and bigger proportion of those for the money really matters, and we have to solve those first.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you mentioned that you work together with a lot of different disciplines, so maybe accounting could be one of them. We could help with the measurement for the...
Yeah, I have actually like during the past 5 years learned quite a lot about marketing because I am collaborating with people from marketing side, and that's really like it's very enthusiastic to work together with different disciplines. Yeah, we should collaborate more together with Aalto. Yes, definitely. Yes. Maybe you'll get better funding as
I'm sure. But you wanted to say something, Mira?
Yeah, just maybe a comment, because we at Sodexo we run quite a few university and high school restaurants as well, and we actually asked our students or the students who go and have lunch in our restaurants. So we asked them about how they see sustainability and food, and actually 43% of them said that they would be willing to pay more if they had this more sustainable option offered in the lunch restaurants. So just coming back to the price discussion, what was there mentioned. So yeah.
May I add a little bit more? We have assessed those attitudes, and I would say that most of the Finns are ready. Their attitudes are set for a change, but it doesn't reflect in our behavior yet. So there's something missing in between.
Yeah, interesting. Yes, you mentioned that you asked a couple of students and they say they would be willing to pay more, but in Sodexo right now you are also starting to use these labels, right? Very similar to what I just presented,
yes.
But you don't make them pay more, right? It's just...
No. And
yes.
In Finland the student lunch prices, they are regulated by the government as well. So it was just like we asked their opinion, how they felt, and they said that and it was not only a couple of students, it was quite many of them who said that they would be they would be willing to pay more if there was the more sustainable option available. Yeah. And yes, we have introduced our own label as well. It's only green, not like traffic lights as in your example, but only green, and it marks the meal of the day that has like less than or equal to 0.5 kilograms of CO2 equivalent in that meal.
Yeah.
So and every day we have that option available. Sometimes it could be more, but it's at least one this kind of option is available daily in our restaurants. So you can choose that if that is the driver for you to choose the environmental friendly option.
And have you noticed any changes? Do people choose this more since you put this label there?
Unfortunately, I don't have any kind of data for that, but when we ask them, they feel that or think that this is important, and they like having it at least. But I don't have any cash register data to provide you with how it is with the sales.
Maybe in the next seminar.
Maybe. Yes.
Okay, so I have the next question to Emilia. So since you're working in the industry association, you have a broad view of the sustainability activities in the textiles and clothing sector. So can you tell us a little bit about the broad trends in sustainability in the sector at the moment, and what you're doing to collaborate with the companies in the sector as an association?
Yes, so sustainability is a huge topic in the industry, probably in the other industries as well, but and it's not just about the environment side, it's the social side, and also the economical side, that we have sustainable growth. It's something that is really essential in the industry as well. So our member companies, we work quite closely with the Finnish textile and fashion industry companies, and they are on like different maturity levels when we talk about sustainability, and the aim is to try to support them, because we see that it's really important that we have the companies on the same journey, but they are in different stages and moving forward in different phases there. But we have seen, like in the industry, the sustainability topics have been really market driven the last like decade or more, and now there's a huge transformation ongoing because we also have the EU textile strategy. It includes 16 binding regulations that the industry needs to be compliant with, and the topics are like touching upon sustainability and circular economy. The main aim is that the products should be more sustainable, more quality products, and the lifespan of the products should be extended and used as long as possible. And when that's not, when you can't do that anymore, the material should be recycled and then used again. So we have this kind of EU legislation also ongoing. So the companies are trying to like navigate between like the soft law side of the sustainability that has been the driving force previously, and now moving into the hard law side on that side.
Thank you very much. I think that's a topic, the roles of the government and the private sector, that we'll also come back to later. So the next question I have is for Riikka. So as the executive vice president in one of the largest retailers in Finland, you have a lot of insights into the customers' sustainable buying habits. So what can you tell us about the recent developments in this area and what Kesko is doing to encourage more sustainable consumption?
Yes, thank you, of course. Yes, first of all, we also ourselves are categorizing our products under sustainable products. And we really are aiming at increasing that number. And that means that in grocery trade, so those are products that are, for example, certified or plant-based, or they are products that have been produced according to our purchasing policies. And the number, by the way, in that sector is now 40%. And the same with the other two businesses. So we really are keen to see how much of the products that we're selling are going under these categories. But I have to say that they are our own categories because the taxonomy does not apply to trade and our sector. And then also what we can see is that there's a big difference between the business-to-business customers and consumers. Business-to-business customers are very demanding. So they demand us to do things and supply sustainable products because they have to deliver to their customers and also follow the regulation. But the consumers, then that's more difficult, of course, because consumer can be having a view, but then can actually behave differently. And it depends on the situation. And as I said, so the consumers at the moment are quite price-driven. And this is why I think that the products, the sustainable products, actually should be quite made easy to consumers to buy. Because many of them at the moment are quite confused. And I just saw another study yesterday, a little bit broader, so that was done on all the northern countries, that are also showing that people don't really know that if I drink cow milk or oat milk, which one is really better, because there are so many attributes that you can think about. No, however, now what we do is that we of course need to do, let's say, try to tempt the consumers in many ways. And one thing that I would like to emphasize is this K-Ruoka application, so which is here, so which is a sustainability as a service. So you can see there, you can follow the carbon footprint of your shopping basket, also how much finished products there are. Also, there are now new well-being indicators about how much let's say vegetables you're eating, and also what vitamins you're getting. So that's one thing, and I actually quite believe in this, and we've been developing that very, very, let's say, in a long-term perspective. And then also have to make sustainable choices visible in the stores. We'll see something new coming also, but there are, for example, these shelves that these are the products that are close to the end of the, close to the expiry date. And so we want to emphasize that they're still sellable products and actually being quite popular. And then going to the traditional side, so the Pirkka magazine, which actually is one of the vastest circulation magazines in Finland, almost, well, over 1.5 million copies made every month. So there's always some sustainability articles also. So, and probably I could make a longer list, but let's this be here.
All right. I think this issue as price has come up already quite a few times today. Actually, before the seminar, when I went out to buy a sandwich, I was happy to see that actually the vegan option was the most cheapest one, which is not always the case. But this brings me to the next question. What do you see, and this is for all of you, what do you see as the main challenges in the transition towards more sustainable business and consumption? We talked about price, consumption habits, maybe the consumer behavior. So what do you see are the most important challenges?
Yeah, I could start from the textile industry, and actually, like I think we just heard some good examples, and I maybe just build up on that one. I know that the Finnish textile and fashion industry has been really product specific. We worked a lot with the product in order to make it a quality product, in order to understand the impacts the product itself has. And as mentioned about the app, the Kesko app that you have, so now we see that when the market is really polarized at the moment, we have like these quality brands, but then we also have this ultra fast fashion that is taking a bigger market shares all the time. So we see that in order to be competitive, we need to build on the services as well. So if we have a good product, then we also need to have the services available in order to keep the product in use and so forth. So we can see the shift on this side, and of course a circular economy is one good option for this. So.
May I continue?
Sure.
I don't know whether you meant consumers or all the actors in the business, but if I start with consumers, I have understood that consumers, they need to have resources for the chains, and by resources I mean, of course, economic resources, but also knowledge, and even most importantly, time. I think time is becoming our most important resource, but they also need to have motivation, and they also need to have opportunities. And very often one or two of those three are missing. And then I think that those meso level and macro level actors, they have to come and help them so that with whatever resources they have, they can find their own specific way to participate in this sustainability step. Because now I'm a bit worried that this whole sustainability issue is becoming like the practice of only like people who have all the resources. So that's why I think it's very important that, for example, on macro level, the political decision makers and social media and health sector and everything, they support those with the least resources.
Thank you.
Just
Riika.
yes. Yeah. Maybe I can take also a point of view of a company. I mean, I think sustainability is proceeding for two reasons. Talking about our perspective is, of course, that we voluntarily want to want to proceed the things. But secondly, there's also the regulation. So there's a real avalanche now going. I don't know if you watched the news today and yesterday, how many new huge pieces of legislation will come into force. They adopt it now because the parliament is ending their mandate. So that will also go for that direction. But when you think about from a company perspective, so actually it needs quite a lot of money also to develop things, because you need to invest. For example, in our case, thinking about the like the climate emissions. So we have 1,800 stores, and we have to do energy efficiency measures in all of them. So it's a lot of money that we're also talking about. So that's why it takes time. You can't do them in one go. And then about the consumer, I would also like to point out that maybe have to still work on having more understandable actions and messages to consumers. And why I'm saying is that when we talk about the real big things, the net zero commitments and everything, so that doesn't really touch people that much. But when we're talking about something tiny little, like that we have a biodegradable sticker on Pirkka bananas, so that goes everywhere. So small things that matter to me are really important, and telling about them as well.
Thank you. I think that's actually a very good lead into the next question, which is the issue of responsibility. So, in your opinion, whose responsibility or primary responsibility is it to foster this transition towards sustainability? Is it that we've talked about now consumers primarily, but there's also the public sector and regulations like we've discussed, as well as the private sector and voluntary actions?
I actually wanted to comment on the previous one still, and going back to the motivation and that people need motivation in order to make change. And I think health and well-being is one of the motivating actors that we see, at least in the restaurant business. And if you can increase the understanding of what is healthy and good food and what does good to your health, but also to the planet and environment and all that. So I think that will help. And in Finland, at least, we have this meat culture still, and I think that is something that we all stakeholders should address. Well, with communication, for example, educating people, making them understand what it, as you said in your example as well in your presentation, that what meat means and what it means if you eat vegan or less meat. Maybe we can also change into better quality meat, meaning that it doesn't have to be transported from Brazil. It can be Finnish meat, for example, if you have to have meat and so forth. So I think this is maybe one thing also to consider.
All right. Would you like to comment on that?
I may like to answer to your second
Yes,
question, if that's fine. Yeah, you may say that I'm naive or unrealistic, but I think that with resources and with power comes responsibility. So if we really like to change everything or something in bigger picture, we have to start from the top. So those actors who have the most power, most resources, they could do the most. So I think it has to start from that level. And even thinking about attitudes on the macro top level, that by changing attitudes of some decision makers, you can motivate some people to do the same. But one thing I just still wanted to add, that I think the biggest barrier for all levels is that we all have kind of hedonistic pursuit of pleasure. So in this sustainable jump, we have to give up something, and it's so difficult. If we could advertise it that now by eating this more and more, like vegetables more and more, you could save your health and planet. That's more positive message than the other end is that now you have to give up some meat, and that's very negative. So we have to kind of word the message the right way that serves our hedonistic side.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yep. Does someone want to add something to that?
I lost already the question.
Whose responsibility? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, maybe about this. I think it's of course everybody's responsibility, but I guess that in practice, the bigger role is really for bigger companies and the regulators, which they have now, by the way, taken very, very strongly. And in that sense, I think that an individual consumer is then following rather. Of course, there is a certain number of consumers who are really conscious about things, but I don't think they will really drive the change alone at all. And there is no real obligation for individual people either. It's the regulation is for companies. Yeah.
Yeah, I could add up on that one that we see that we need a regulation that supports the transition, that and supports the companies in their sustainability journey. So it should be like in a supportive form, and also, of course, setting some kind of baseline, what is acceptable, but the support angle is really important there. The companies are already doing it; they are moving forward, so the public sector also need to have their role in this. And then also I say that it's important to create incentives, because we know that the consumers are interested in sustainability issues, but when we come to the buying part, then it's really price orientated. So some kind of like incentives on that side would be really great, but don't know what kind of incentives would be the right ones. But then we would we can't just do it in one part. We need to have every part on the same journey, and then also different kinds of measures in place in order to achieve the next level.
Thank you. Very interesting discussion. I think we need to conclude it now because we're running out of time, and we still want to give the audience the chance to also ask a couple of questions. But we have, we have come to the conclusion that we need incentives, right? We need to maybe use the price mechanism after all, and it should start from the top towards the bottom. And both businesses and consumers need resources in order to help in this transition. But thank you very much, and I think we should open the floor now for audience questions.
Yes. Do we have any questions here from the audience or online questions?
Well, we can start from the online maybe first. So there was one question about fashion and style. How can sustainable style choices in natural fibers be promoted when people have very tight budgets and the temptation to buy fast fashion is high? Also, natural fibers are scarce. There is so much recycled polyester these days. Any tips or case examples in this area?
All right.
A long question, but
Perhaps we can give this to Emilia.
Yeah, I can try to start to answer this one. This is a huge question in the industry when we know that the most used material is fossil based. So and how we could change this issue. I see it's like we need to have changes in several different layers, not just only in the consumer side. We also need to have incentives or some kind of tax regulation or something based on the material side. So like earlier in the value chain on that side, in order to support that. Maybe more sustainable materials. But then also I see that the most topical issue is also to have the right material in the right product. So we have the right performance. Like if trying to explain it somehow, that if we have like a jacket, so maybe in order to so that it can fulfill its functions, we need to choose the material carefully in order to find the right material on that side. So maybe I didn't answer the whole question, but partly maybe.
Thank you. Did we have a question from the audience? Yeah.
Well, this is not a question. My name is Jouko Kuisma. I started working in these issues in 1997 and I haven't stopped yet. But I come here once a year to this seminar and have the same comment that as long as we are getting more responsible here in the Western world, we can cause problems in the developing world. So one is this that was mentioned here, this replacing cotton with sustainable fibers, which Finland is very good at. But if we replace cotton totally, we have to write a message to Western Africa and other 100 million families who are living on cotton, so that we don't need you anymore, try to find something else. Or about flying, which is not a very good issue at the moment. If we send a letter to the hotels in Thailand that we don't fly anymore, so try to find something else. Or if we send a letter to Kenya, where they produce cut flowers with very low emissions, 5 or 7 times lower than we have in our countries, and they are fresh products. If we tell them that you can't fly them here anymore, sell them to Tanzania or Ethiopia or whatever. So all this will cause social problems in the poor countries. So that is one side of the issue that we have to remember.
I think this is a very important question, and broadly the question of this global justice between the global north and the south. Would any of you like to touch on that?
Well, maybe I can just continue a little bit what Jouko said. When I was still in the forest industry, and I was really interested in seeing the world and that no deforestation happens. And as you know, so the oil palm is a really bad plant, because I mean then you cut the tropical rainforest and you plant the oil palms and then start to cultivate, and the biodiversity disappears. Now then I was happy to fortunate to be able to go to Sumatra, to Indonesia, to really see that the land and the country and what they were doing. And then when you really see a really poor family who is having let's say half of this room is his plant, or let's say the agricultural land, and they have a couple of oil palms and then some manioc and some potatoes and something else. And the oil palm is a really productive plant. And they actually get so much money that they can have one of their kids to school. And it really starts thinking that, well, what am I to say that you can't do this, that you have to keep the forest there? And that really led to, let's say, to really think that those products on other side, they can be really good, and on other side, really bad, but you really have to take care that whatever there is, that's kind of done as good as possible. So like certified palm oil and this type of things. So these are really complex issues, and when you go there and see it on your own eyes, it really makes it very touching and visible.
Emilia.
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, I'm really privileged that we have Jouko here in the audience. So really much aware of the work you have done and followed it. So, but yeah, I think this was a really important point that you raised, and social justice, because when we talk about the textile industry, we know that it has been like outsourced to the global south during the past decades, and we need to take carefully into account all the impacts that the decisions that we are doing here in the Western world, what kind of impacts they have on the worker in the textile fabric, textile industry. So maybe, as Riikka said, this is a really complex issue, and I think there's no like easy answers here, but you need to like weigh different aspects and like have a broad view and understanding on the impacts that the decisions have on the environment, on the social part.
Thank you very much. I realize now that we are running out of our allotted time, and clearly we would have had more to discuss, but I think we can continue the discussion after the seminar. But I will give the floor to Timo to conclude. And let's give one more final applause to all of our panelists.
Yes, thank you on my behalf as well. It was very nice to have such a broad expertise panel here today. Loved listening to it. Of course, when you think about us as Aalto, shaping sustainable future, and us as business school aiming for better business by, or better society by better business, this was really spot on. And thank you in particular for Samuli and Bianca, two of our superstars in their respective fields. Thank you, and as they said, we'll continue discussions over refreshments here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.